The NFL free agency period has finally come to a simmer, so today we're going to shift our gears and look at the NFL draft, and more importantly, we're going to examine the Minnesota Vikings draft needs and kind of break down each positional group in its own tier based on how much we need to replace the current talent on the roster. And before I get into each tier, we're going to talk about, obviously, if a highly touted player that ranks so much higher than a player that we even need more, positional wise, we draft a better player if it's that big of a gap. But let's get right into it with the tier of the bottom tier, where if we don't draft any of these players of need for these positions, we'd be just fine. These positions are set. So let's start off number 11, running back. Looking at Dalvin Cook, we have the starter. We have Madison, a very respectable backup, and we re-signed Abdullah, who is a very solid number 3 running back, and he can also play special teams. Unless if we find a running back that slips to us that's great on special teams and is also a better running back, the Vikings are completely set at running back. So then number 10, defensive tackle. Going into free agency, this was one of our biggest needs, but now getting Dalvin Tomlinson and Michael Pierce coming back from the injury or COVID list, I think the Vikings are very well set at tackle now. With Michael Pierce and Tomlinson being the starters. Depth's also good with Armon Watts, James Lynch, and Hercules Mataafa all behind them. I think all three are solid enough backups and could even warrant a little bit better playing time as the year goes on. And then the Vikings slide defensive ends for pass rush situations in the game anyways on third and longs. So I think the Vikings are just set at defensive tackle all of a sudden. So those were the two that if we don't draft at all, we're just fine. The next tier, we're looking at more so backups, not very pressing needs, but you could definitely get some more talent on the roster. So starting with number 9, linebackers. So currently on the roster, we have Barr and Kendricks, the two college roommate boys back on the team again, and then the third linebacker is a little bit more up in the air with Troy Dye and Nick Vigil kind of battling out that third linebacker spot, and Eric Wilson still a free agent. So if we sign Eric Wilson, I would consider the linebacker position group done and set. It could probably even slip into that bottom tier where we don't even need to draft them. But as of right now, Troy Dye wasn't very good his rookie year. He did show enough athleticism and stuff that we saw on tape in college that he might be good enough as a linebacker 3, especially if he is supposed to be the worst linebacker on the field. I think we could get by with him, and Nick Vigil kind of gives us a veteran backup linebacker presence who could be good enough if need be. But if we wanted to draft linebacker 3 or somebody to push him, that would be good. And then if Micah Parsons slips to us and the Vikings really want to pull the trigger, that wouldn't be horrible too. But mostly more of a depth pick at linebacker at the moment. Number 8, tight end. Losing Kyle Rudolph and tight end still this invaluable shows just how much the Vikings didn't need Kyle Rudolph. With Irv Smith being the starter, Tyler Conklin probably a good enough backup from what we've seen. But then number 3 is Brandon Dillon, who we've seen basically nothing of. He was a rookie last year. He had 1 catch for 6 yards. We could probably replace that, but it's also tight end 3. I would love, I'm on my hands and knees begging the Vikings to find another Jimmy Kleinsaucer, but of course Jimmy Kleinsaucers don't grow on trees, so let's not get our hopes up. But if we could get that great blocking tight end / fullback hybrid player, that would be fantastic. Number 7, this is going to blow a lot of your heads off, but this one, pretty clear cut if you actually have a brain, okay? That's offensive tackle. This is obviously hinging on whether or not the Vikings see Ezra Cleveland as a tackle or a guard. The consensus coming out of college is he's a tackle, and what we saw in at guard is he's not really strong enough to handle defensive tackles, but he has good lateral movement to get to linebackers, so you would think that skill set would transfer a lot better at tackle without Riley Reef. I would hope the Vikings would be heavily pushing Cleveland to tackle. So that's the presumptive guess I'm going with where he'll be at next year. But obviously, if Cleveland is a guard, you can flip this and my interior line pick. Obviously, before we start a fight in the comments. But let's get into it. So, if Cleveland's a tackle, we have Brian O'Neill in Cleveland, two very good, hopefully very good tackles. We know O'Neill's good, but Cleveland's, of course, still a question mark. Rashad Hill is a very solid veteran swing tackle. Then Ollie Udo, who did successfully block Khalil Mack a couple of times. Very cool. We have the starters, we have a veteran backup, and then we have a young kid that could maybe move into that veteran backup role in Udo. So I think the Vikings are basically set at tackle. You can always get better. It's never a bad idea to draft a tackle, especially since college linemen, you better be able to play all four positions if you're a late round draft pick. But you can always get better, I guess, but the Vikings are actually very well set at tackle at the moment. Next, the next tier. This is the third or second tier, depending if you want to have this going up or down. But this is the tier where we do need immediate rotational depth and maybe more of a presence that you'll see him on the field every now and again. So starting with number 6, we have cornerback. Now, this is coming right off of the Jeff Gladney news. I don't want to touch that too much, but his future with the team is kind of up in the air in the moment with some of his legal troubles. If you guys want a full video of me breaking that down and my full thoughts on that, tell me in the comment section, and I will, against my better judgment, go in and figure out all the details and give you my honest opinion on what the Vikings should do with him. But just a guess, my current guess is the Vikings would just give him a big slap on the wrist and hope for the best. And if it does end up being like legal, like jail time and stuff, then he'd be off the team. But barring no actual jail time, I think Gladney's on it. Okay, but now back into football stuff. Still, even without Gladney, you would have Dantzler, Peterson, Mackenzie Alexander coming back to be the slot corner, and then hopefully Mike Hughes can stay healthy for a game or two. That's a solid enough group of 4 corners. Then Chris Boyd, as bad as he is, isn't a horrible number 4. And then Harrison Hand played a couple snaps last year. For a late round rookie corner, you didn't hear his name very often, which is good news for a late round rookie corner. So the Vikings aren't too bad at corner, even if we don't have Gladney. But if we do, cornerback's basically fine. I mean, obviously you can never have enough corners. You saw what happened last year where every single corner, basically every single person with a 20 number jersey got hurt last year. But you can always get more depth. That's never a bad thing. But moving on to number 5, quarterback. This one's very interesting. So with all the trades going on, I see it very unlikely that a top, quarterback prospect would slip to us at number 14 overall. But a mid-round quarterback makes a ton of sense for 2 reasons. Either one, he proves that maybe not right away, but he proves that he can be better than Cousins, at least eventually, where the Vikings could cut ties with Cousins sometime, probably not this year, maybe next, or maybe even the 3rd year. But if not that, he would at least give Cousins a threat that if he's bad, there's a guy behind him that the Vikings might rather roll with, and this would light some type of a fire, and it would motivate Cousins a little bit more than having a 7th round pick in Nate Stanley or undrafted rookie Jake Browning, who's currently the other 2 quarterbacks on the roster being his backup. So that's why we would want a quarterback that would at least be good enough. And obviously, as of right now, we need the backup regardless. Even though Cousins, hate him or love him, the thing that you can't really hide from his resume is his elite durability. So I don't think all we want is a quarterback on the off chance that Cousins will get hurt, Stanley's fine. But if we want a quarterback to actually motivate Cousins, make him that little bit better, and maybe on the off chance that a third or fourth round guy would develop into an eventual starter, then that's just icing on the cake. So that's where we would want a quarterback. So that's the number 5 pick. Moving to number 4 is wide receiver. So this one is pretty interesting. So as of right now, it's Thielen and Jefferson. Those are the guys, and it's basically a whole lot of like guys that non-Vikings fans haven't even heard of. So BC Johnson and Chad Beebe, decent enough, I guess, but definitely replaceable. And then special teams, Dan Chisena and KJ Osborne, like barely even have a shot on the wide receiver depth chart, but they're on here. So that's what we're kind of looking at right now. Where KJ Osborne's wide receiver 5. I would love a speed burner, and unless Dan Chisena learns how to catch a football, I don't think it's going to be him. So I would love to give us that 4-3 guy, take the top off, and let kind of Adam Thielen settle into that middle of the field, first down, move the chains guy. And I think the Vikings would benefit a lot. And BC Johnson, Chad Beebe, they're fine wide receiver 4s. But if we have an injury, knock on wood, if they have an injury, I do not want to see those guys on the field for 90% of the snaps. They're not good enough to be that. They're hardly good enough to be wide receiver 3 or 4, even with the Vikings run first approach. And then, God forbid, the Vikings want to spread the ball out and we have Johnson and Beebe on the field at the exact same time. No, yeah, we need more wide receiver depth, especially. That would be helpful a lot. And then bonus points if they can return kicks and punts, or at least one of the two. That would be very good. That would be very nice. Our special teams would love it a lot. Then, number 3 and last on this tier is safety. So thank God the Vikings did sign a free agent safety and Xavier Woods. So we have Harrison Smith, Woods, and then basically nobodies. Josh Metellus, Miles Dorn, and just nobody, Kirk Luther, that nobody in there, Luther Kirk. You can't even trust this guy with 2 first names, so he's not a good football player. So we definitely need more depth at safety, especially, I always go back to it, but in the heyday, the 3 safety sets is so good, especially if we end up having bad luck with linebacker injuries again. That 3 safety looks so good if you're depleted at linebacker. You can have another safety lurk in the box more and basically be a very much hybrid linebacker safety player that's very good at, right on top of the tight end to take care of those play action passes. I think that would work out very good, especially with Harrison Smith getting up in age. So this is one that would be a sneaky, if the Vikings trade back in the first round, a safety would make a lot of sense. And the first, maybe if we can, get a second round pick, second round would be good. Or if we use our third round pick on a safety, like all those would make a lot of sense because we would want a safety moving forward for one way or the other. Next, we're moving into the tier that we need replacements right away. If we could get day one plug in and play starters, these are the positions, and lucky for the Vikings, we only have 2, which I don't think is that bad. But number 2, interior offensive line. So obviously, like I said about tackles, this depends very much so on one, Ezra Cleveland. I don't know where the Vikings see him. But if he's at tackle, guard is extremely important for the team. We're looking at our starting guards right now being Dakota Dozier and Mason Cole. Who's happy about that? Not me. So Dakota Dozier's horrible. Drew Samia is horrible. But they're okay enough as backups. So if we could draft a guard that can start day one, and then Samia, Dozier are backups, all of a sudden our guard's very strong. We're very solid. Mason Cole, I think, is a very underrated acquisition. He's not going to blow your hats off, but at least for a year or 2 stopgap guard, I think he'll do fine. And Rashad Hill can even play guard, so if we need to develop a guard that's not quite learning the playbook quite fast enough or whatever, we can let Rashad Hill play guard than Dakota Dozier. But drafting a guard would be huge. We need it. Please. Thank you very much. Please get a guard. Center's fine. I included center and just called it interior offensive line. But Bradbury's fine. Mason Cole can also play in center. So, again, Mason Cole, very good, underrated acquisition. And then moving to number 1, defensive end. Huge. So, currently on the roster, Danielle Hunter, who's up in the air right now. He's not very happy with his contract. So, who knows if something happens and the Vikings aren't able to work something out, what happens then? Next, Stephen Weatherly, then Jalen Holmes, DJ Wanham, and then Jordan Brayford are our defensive ends on the roster as of right now, and also Kenny Wilkes, if you want to count him as well. So, DJ Wanham, like, if you want to call him, he flashed, I guess, against Aaron Rodgers to close out the one game. Very cool. He got a strip sack. Very cool. So he's definitely worthy to be a starting defensive end in the NFL. Definitely. Stephen Weatherly is a decent enough rotational guy. Not a good starter. I don't think DJ Wanham's a good enough starter, if you couldn't sense for the sarcasm. Danielle Hunter's contract's up in the air. So, like, even if tomorrow the Vikings lock up Danielle Hunter, make him the highest paid defensive end in league history, he's locked down, he's happier than ever, we sign Everson Griffin, and guess what? Defensive end's still the biggest need on the team. Getting after the quarterbacks, the thing that's going to help our defense the absolute most, especially with Dalvin Tomlinson being our guy we chose to get at defensive tackle. We need pass rush, and we're going to get it mostly on the outside. We're going to use Tomlinson and Pierce to stuff the run, but we need a pass rusher on the outside. Even if we have Danielle back, getting that guy, that's like our biggest need. That if we would reach a little bit in the first round, I wouldn't hate too much. Obviously, to my very first point of the video, generally you want the best player available. You just kind of want to lean towards your board needs a little bit. But there we have it. Defensive end being the biggest need on the team still. Give me your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you want me to start doing some mock drafts, make sure to tell me. And give me your favorite players that you'd want the Vikings to draft. Otherwise, see you guys in the next Jersey Vikings video. Bye!